So my name is William Johnson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of B-Hive Living. I have been investing in property since 2017. That's when I co-founded B-Hive Living together with my wife, Silvia Grattieri. And since then, we have been on quite a journey, which I'm going to share some of this journey with you today. Today, my talk is going to be about how to future-proof your HMO business. I think we're all sensing that the market is changing, particularly the UK market. And the recipe for success is no longer the same what it was maybe a year, 2 years, or 5 years ago. And what it means for us as professionals, and I don't think I need to be here, do I? Okay, great, I can walk. And what it means for us as professionals of this field, and investors and operators, is that we need to evolve with it. We need to be thinking, how can we adapt our business to the changes that are coming, and be thinking, and so this talk is going to be what to prepare for and how to do it, okay? So, next. So, the UK market landscape is changing a lot. So since 2000, we have seen the rental market in the UK has doubled. And what we have seen with that is that private renting is growing much faster than home ownership. And to illustrate that, one of the key figures we can point out is the fact that in the last 10 years, while home mortgages have decreased by 3%, private renting has grown by a whopping 20%. So it's a quite major discrepancy there. But what is interesting about this is that in the midst of all these changes, single rent housing has been the segment of the market that has grown the most. And what I mean by that is that we have 80 million people in the UK that are tenants now. These are people living alone. And that's great news for most of us in this room that work in housing. But that brings opportunities, but also brings some challenges. Challenges that can be overcome and turned into opportunities. And that's some of the things that we're going to be talking about today. So one of these major changes is that what we have seen is that Millennial and Gen Z tenants are now the largest consumers of rental housing in the UK. And these guys will shape and change the marketplace, particularly for rental housing, in a way that has never been done before. And they will do that not only as consumers, but also as entrepreneurs. And that's something that hasn't been talking about, but it's something that's happening already. Actually, there's the largest company in the world of shared housing. It's controlled and has been created by 2 millennials. And in the space of 5 years, they are the biggest players in the US, Europe, and now increasingly in Asia. So these guys, they mean business. So for those that are familiar with some of these brands in here, you do know what I'm talking about. This is the most innovative and the most entrepreneurial generation in history. And for each and every company they have created, what these guys have been able to do was to change the trajectory of the sectors in which they operated. And they will do the same with the rental market. And as I said, this is already happening. And why should you care? And the reason why you should care, because they are going to be who your HMO business depends on to survive and thrive in the future, but they also will be probably your competition too. So they will demand more quality, flexibility, and different traits from your business that haven't not been asked before. And that's why you need to know them very well so you can prepare for it. Now, this inflation of the UK rental market has also meant that the UK have become a target for institutional investors from all over the world. So in fact, the UK, it's right now the second largest market for institutional grade investors in yield assets in the world after the US. But not many people talk about it. And the result in practical terms, what it means is that you are seeing a much more sophisticated product, rental product in the marketplace, but also we are seeing a much more sophisticated competition. So what it means for us, we have to up our game, okay? And this competition, what we see is in the shape of build-to-rent assets, in the shape of institutional-grade co-living assets, and in the shape of service apartment institutional-grade assets. At the moment, a lot of this change and these assets that have been created in London, but increasingly there are very large portfolios being created across the regions. And that's going to affect a lot of you. But despite the government's incentives to really incentivize institutional investment in the UK, less than 1% of today's private renting, housing portfolio, less than 1% is owned by institutions. And what it means for us, that we are still the biggest game in town when it comes to private housing in stock. We are the biggest providers of it. And there is a power that comes with it. But we must leverage. And at the same time, but I would say at the same time, it's not time to be complacent. Change is coming fast. Because before, instead of when you think a small HMO investor is able to put maybe 8 bedrooms in a place like Oxford, Cambridge, or Watford, these guys can bring 350 in 1 year. And that makes a huge difference to a market of that size, okay? So, I must get this right. That's not. So it's very important to know what this new generation of renters want and what do they crave for. Like in any sector, the key to success, and I spent 13 years of my life building a global professional service company, which I took to 48 countries around the world. And I sold that back in 2016 before deciding to create this one. And the key to success then was the same as it is now. It's understanding who your consumer is and delivering and creating a product that aligns with them. And for the rental sectors, it's the same. So it's very important right now that we look at what is going on in the life of these guys and create a product that aligns with it. So let's look for a moment to it. So first of all, the high cost of living that we all have been suffering in the UK affects them as well. So affordability is a key priority for them. The second thing is that's very unique to this generation. They prefer access to a product than ownership. Now, if you tell this to the generation of my parents or my grandma, they'll say, no, ownership, obviously, I want to own my property. But for a lot of them, renting is a choice, and it's a choice that they embrace because it means that they can afford better quality. Yeah? So quality is quite important for them. Then the other thing is that on average, these guys are going to have 11 jobs on their lifetime. And they're going to have very dynamic lives. So 85% of our residents in B-Hive Living, they are expats. More than 20% of them come from Asia. So these are people coming from Asia, New York, coming from different parts of the world to come and work here. And then 2 years later, 6 months later, they go to Germany. And then they go to another place again. So contractual flexibility is really, really important for them. Then the other thing is that social media and the business model life has made these guys really be, at the same time that they are incredibly gifted in terms of entrepreneurship, they are also the most lonely generation ever. And our stats point to this. 49% of young adults in the UK are consider themselves lonely. So what it means is that social experiences are really, really important. But when you think of the rental market, you think, okay, I'm renting a room, so how does social experience features into it? I'm going to tell you about in a minute. And finally, these guys are the guys that grown up with the internet. So it's natural for them to have an inclination for tech-enabled solutions. They like technology. They've grown with this. They don't know any other thing. And the other thing that's more important for you is they rely heavily on online reviews to take decisions. They are much more likely to trust a review from a stranger online than the word of a friend. And that's fact. So in a nutshell, so what these guys want, it's a rental product and experience that suits their lifestyle, that suits their needs, and suits their traits as individuals. And it's up to us as entrepreneurs to suss that out, okay, and create that. So let's go into this. When you look at the most prevalent rental products in the market right now and the most prevalent investment strategies, it's very easy for you to see the disconnect between what tenants want and what's being made available to them. But in the past, they didn't have choice. But with these thousands and thousands of institutional-grade products coming in the market, now they have choice. So what? We've got Apple again. Okay? So luckily, some of us have already realized this, and many of them are in this room already, and have started to evolve their HMO products and rental products to align with this new and evolving context. And started to deliver something that aligns with the wishes and wants of this new generation. And that's called co-living HMOs. Now, for a lot of people, what I have seen is people say, oh, co-living HMOs, they are sort of glorified HMO. And I see a lot of misinterpretation and misconception around what this is. And it's part of what I want to clear today, okay? Because this exists and is very tangible. And there is a very simple reason why B-Hive Living is hugely oversubscribed in terms of the amount of people wanting our products and the supply that we have. It's because these products, and it's not only B-Hive, there are many others here that are doing this. And the reason for that is because it's the very simple reason that we're delivering something that the tenants want, that the consumer want. And that makes sense to everyone, should make sense for everyone, okay? But let me explain how a co-living HMO differs from a traditional HMO. So a traditional HMO, like a co-living HMO, it's a property rented by the room by unrelated people, okay? But that's where the similarities end. Because then we have a product that's design-led. And what I mean by that is furnishing features and equipment that are really high grade and would be comparable to to a 3-star hotel or a high-grade service apartment, okay? Then you have service orientation. And what do I mean by that? It's not simply about having all bills included. In a co-living HMO, what you have is like events, you have exclusive discounts, you have people being able to access cleaning packets and many other things. So it takes the product way beyond what it is now. And then you have a tech-enabled product. And what I mean by that, it's using technology not only in the optimization of the business, but also in a way that you can engage the consumer and provide convenience. And I will provide a tangible example of that in a few minutes, okay? And then finally, and if you have to forget everything I have said, I want you to remember that UCX is the most important thing, the community experience. This is if you want to be part of this evolution, okay? And what UCX means It's strategy, tools, and technology that's designed to influence every stage of the customer journey of the tenant. From inquiry, through to onboarding, through to the way they request for maintenance requests, through inventory, and through checkout, okay? So we use a lot of that, and we have more than 146 touch points that we have optimized in order for this to happen. So what qualifies to talk about this? So we are B-Hive Living. We have been for 8 years creating technology, products, properties, and strategies to empower people to lead a more connected, helpful, fulfilling lifestyle. So some of these are some of the credentials of our brand. So why did we do this? When my wife and I started to invest, we realized we just felt that for too often in the property context, the tenants were being overlooked. And we came from professional service, and my wife was a global branding manager. And we say, for us, the tenant and the consumer is everything. So why in property is not the center of the operation? And that's why we decided to create the business what it is. So for us, we're not selling rooms. We are selling an experience, a life-enhanced experience. And that translates in very different outcomes for both the tenants and our business. For that, we have won a whole bunch of accolades. So we won the best user experience in the UK 2 years ago, and the best one in the world last year, beating many of the institutional grade assets that you may have seen that we are competing with. So here's an example of what we do. So we know that communication is one of the efficient communications, one of the most sought after traits by tenants in relation to agents, operators, and investors. Yet most people rely on mail and email and many other things. So what we did, we created an app that allows residents from the beginning to find commonality. They can see the hobbies that they have. They can see, they write that bio, which they have here. They can see where they come from, the background. The second thing they can do is they can discover what's going on in the community. They can see which events are going on, who have a birthday, what people are doing, if they are running a marathon together, all sorts of things they can find there. The other thing, they can book events, they can book services in real time, they can find out about the property, and every aspect of the tenants is there. So what we wanted for that was to declutter the communication between the tenants and our team. And the reason for that is simple. I don't want my team doing paperwork. I want them to invest in the experience of the tenant, because that's where the value is. And I'll show you why. So a lot of people ask us, why do you do this, Williams? Why do your team spend so much time on this? And here's some of the reasons. The first is product differentiation, which makes us more competitive, which means that we can achieve high retention rates and high occupancy rates. So last year, our occupancy rate is 99.4%. And bear in mind that we don't do only long-term rents. We do 1 month to 3 months rent. Our retention rate is 68%. And the reason for that, we have some tangible information here for you. This was a survey, not done by us, across Europe, looking at to the degree in which people find community to be important to the rental sector. And guess what? The UK tenant is the one that have the highest perception of the importance of community in the rental sector. And there is a very simple reason for this, because they can see the tangible impact it can have on their lives. It makes them feel safer. It makes them feel that they can find other people and they can trust other people. So there is all these very tangible results. There is no wishy-washy thing here. The other thing is that it impacts the bottom line. How it impacts the bottom line? It creates differentiation, but also we achieve much higher pricing points than other people. And the reason we do is because you can see that's the degree in which UK tenants, they're willing to pay more in rent for some of the amenities we provide. And the reason they do for that, because it's valuable for them. And what it means for us as investors, which means we achieve higher market rents, and we achieve much higher market valuations. Okay? So we receive some ridiculous market valuation for our assets as a result of that. Now, what it does for our competitiveness, not only in terms of, if you look at the spectrum of rental products that exist in the UK, you see the institutional grade assets there, high-end, high-tech. We see a lot of the traditional HMOs here in the low-tech, low-end. And the reason for that is a lot of them have been built a long time ago. So that's the simple reason for that. But what we see is that B-Hive Living are able to position ourselves right there. And what it means in practical terms, our price per square meter is comparable to these guys for a fraction of the cost. We invest 300K in a property, they invest 200 million in the portfolio. But we achieve similar or higher pricing points than them. And our experience is comparable. So much so that we beat most of them. And what it means for our competitiveness with other user classes. So what we have seen is that people that usually stay in hotels, they want to stay with us. People stay in private apartments, they want to stay with us because of what the amenities we provide. Again, it's an evolution of the product here. So many of you are going to be looking at, so what, Williams? What this all means? What it means is that an elevated, I hope I will have convinced you that an elevated HMO experience leads to higher rents. And if I haven't convinced you up to this point, I would like just to note some of other things we have achieved. So we achieve rents that are 36% higher than our peers in the same areas. Our NPS score, which is the degree which our tenants recommend us, is 46% higher, 47% higher than the sector average. And that's because 93% of our residents feel deeply connected to those that the people they live with. 73% of them believe we have a tangible impact on their well-being with 3 months of living with us. Now, I would love for those that want to embark on this journey to provide some tangible ways and some tangible examples of what we have done in order to do this, because it doesn't require a huge amount of investment. It's really more of a sort of mindset that you need to have. And for us was very interesting because when we came into the proper world, the impression that we had was that there was a lot of people doing a bit in their business like they were playing a tennis game, looking at the scorecard rather than the ball. The ball is the consumer, and the scorecard is the results. We redefine success for ourselves. So what is success for us? Is the joy, laughter, and the shared moments that our residents enjoy in our properties, in our experience. And because of that, we get the results. So the focus is not on the result, the focus on the experience. So how do you do that? First, you personalize your experience. And I think it may sound very easy, but there are some easy things you can do. You can create a welcome pack. And the key to that is to anticipate needs. So to find out a lot about people before they actually join your HMO. How do you do that? Social media. You can find out about your consumer much more than any other time in history. You can ask them to fill a form. There are all sorts of ways. But then you use that information to wow them. You write a note about special moments. You know what they like. You know their hobbies. So use that strategically to create that wow moment. Recognize the special moments. You can provide them for valuable information about the destination, the place in which you operate. But that's really interesting, and I think that's probably going to be new to some of you. When I ask people, what customer do you focus? They say young professionals. What does that mean? Because there is a plethora of younger professionals, but which type of young professionals? So what it means here, you have to be really focused on niche markets. So B-Hive Living, we focus on expat, but increasingly what I have seen is like there are much higher yield and high growth market segments than young professionals, mature professionals. We have seen a massive growth in young couples looking for our product. But the biggest growth has been business travelers and digital nomads looking for us. So what is digital nomads? Is someone that live and work, and they travel and work at the same time. So last year we have an investment banker all the way from New York and come and spend 3 months with us. Guess what? They pay a much higher pricing point than a local person. But why on earth this guy came from New York? Here, he wasn't looking for a room. He was looking for an experience. That's the only reason, okay? And finally, leverage technology. Now, we have been leveraging technology and playing with technology for the last 8 years. And I think that the simplest thing you can do is high-grade internet, because internet's more important than water for professionals. You know, it's just what it is. But you need to find the right solution. And I'm sorry for those that work in Virgin. The traditional players, it's not what it's going to cut here. You know, you need to look for specialist providers that are going to deliver one. Provide a keyless environment and provide also smart thermostats, but in a way that actually helps people to adapt their lifestyle to your product. For instance, in B-Hive, what I have is each unit have a sensor that as the person comes in, switches on, as the person comes out, switch off. If you are in your work and you say, actually, I want to arrive in 20 minutes in our room and I want it to be warm, you can, with the app, switch that on. If you arrive in New York for a business trip and you forgot that on and our team didn't catch, then you can switch off all day from New York, okay? But the area that's going to be the biggest area of growth is AI. We have been playing a lot of AI, and I think that's going to be amazing what AI can do. A lot of people point to the risks of AI, which is very valid, but there is a lot that can be done with this. So, change is inevitable, and life will always going to bring change. But transformation is a choice, and it's a choice that each and every one of you can do here. And for those that choose to create a tenant-centric business, we have a gift for you. We recently decided to create this guide with the support of Coho to share a little bit of the strategy that we have been applying so that those that decided to follow suit and create this call revolution, you can find out by some of these strategies that we have. And also understand what's UCX in the context of HMO. What the hell is that? So please download, enjoy this, use it, ask any questions. You can reach out to our team, okay? And finally, for those that want to partner, understand more, we love partnering with people. We learn a lot from people in each and every experience, and we work with both private investors and institutional grade investors. So please feel free to come and work with us. Thank you.